Good morning, everyone. I had some thoughts. Something was bothering me. So I thought I would turn on the camera and see what happens. Separating children from families. What in the world is that about? Well, we have an immigration policy or law in the U.S. that makes it illegal for people to enter the country without permission, which is somewhat normal and understandable. And when a person enters the country illegally, it can be considered a crime. And when it's considered a crime, they prosecute it like a crime. As part of a normal prosecution of a crime, getting eaten by a mosquito. As part of a normal prosecution of a crime, yes, the parent would be separated from the child. But surely you would have heard about this before, right? It's not just because the Trump administration does it, right? And I think that's true. I think it is a new thing to enforce with zero tolerance. And that's what's going on here. On May 7th, Jeff Sessions, the United States Attorney General, announced a zero tolerance policy on illegal immigration. Every person who comes in contact with Customs and Border Patrol, who has some kind of illegal immigration issue, is arrested and charged with a federal crime. What used to happen was people were turned away, were sent back, were deported, they were kept together as families, and they were not charged with a crime until they attempted a second re-entry and were caught a second time. And now what I understand is happening is even first-time offenders are being charged with a criminal offense, and a lot of these people are bringing their families with them, and here's where I start to have a breakdown with the way the system is operating. Attorney General Sessions refers to the bringing of your children with you as smuggling. And I'm assuming that falls under human trafficking and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, we don't want children to be smuggled. So what's weird is that such language has to be used. If the policy was sound, why would we need to call the bringing of your own child with you smuggling? I don't understand why it would need to be called smuggling. If I bring my own wallet with me, if I bring my own drugs with me, those are not smuggling issues. Perhaps I'm still guilty of a crime, and we can talk all day about whether illegally immigrating people should be prosecuted, how far, how federally, how not federally, whatever. Well, I guess it has to be federally because it's immigration. But I have an issue with the separating of families. That is not something we do in this kind of case. The crime that's being committed isn't by itself a crime of violence or a crime of moral turpitude. It's not the kind of crime that needs to be punished, rehabilitated, etc. It is understandable that people would seek a different life. In our United States, we have the privilege of seeking that different life in any state at any time without any other consequences than the normal having to move or whatever. But these are people who can't move from one country, for example, Mexico, into our country. And I understand this because unchecked immigration would cause a huge disruption. And so you need to go through the legal channels. However, when the legal channels are being exploited, or when people simply don't trust the legal channels, or if people are simply lazy and don't want to try to go through the legal channels, or maybe they're desperate, maybe there's actually a violence situation that they're running from, or maybe it's just a simple want to improve their life and think there could be opportunity and possibly, family on the other side. I disagree with the description of illegally immigrating with your children as smuggling. I disagree with a zero tolerance policy on federal crimes or federal criminal charges for the offenders. And I disagree with all of this being used as theater to drum up support or awareness or something of the immigration issue, when the actual rate of immigration has remained unchanged and has plateaued for some time now, and all this is doing is creating a backlog of people, of adults and children who need to be processed through the system. And if you are a person who wants a bigger system, who wants more money spent on the system, and the studies I read this morning indicated that this does not deter illegal immigration. This just creates outrage in the international community. We've already been accused of human rights violations here, and I agree that these are human rights violations. I mean, I hate to prove Godwin's Law again, but come on, guys. I watched Schindler's List. The Nazis did the same thing. They separate the people from the spouses, from each other, from their children. It's a dehumanizing thing. It's a demoralizing thing. More damn mosquitoes. It's a demoralizing thing, and the attitude shows when Sessions says that it's on them not to, quote, smuggle their children, and they should expect the consequences of their actions. I think the attitude shows, and it's not an attitude of understanding, but also discipline, or understanding but also practicality of the legal situation. It is instead looked at like these aren't people, and that's the problem that I have. They're still people, even if they've done something that is a technical violation of our laws and they need to be processed through deportation or whatever. That's understandable. We can disagree, discuss, debate all day about the level of processing that needs to be done, but there's no need to separate a family. It's not that kind of crime. They've done the thing together to try and find a better life in most cases. The prosecutors should certainly have discretion to make decisions about those who are truly committing a heinous criminal offense, such as the true human trafficking of others unconsensually, or other crimes that may be committed that happen. I mean, no matter what happens, there's crimes that are committed by people. So even no matter what part of life you go through, you're going to be able to point out criminals. It's a weird world that we live in, that Mr. Sessions is quoting the Bible, is quoting the Christian Bible, because that's not what the Bible says about illegal immigration or about your love for your brother. It doesn't mean that you have to tolerate and agree with every bad thing they do, but it doesn't mean you need to dehumanize them or treat them like they are lesser human beings or lesser beings or just not a human family. That's just a weird thing. I understand they're even separating children younger than one, newborns and things like that. So It's everybody. It's 100% zero tolerance. That's the problem. 100% zero tolerance under the guise of biblically blessed enforcement of our laws. Laws which are more policies than... Don't immigrate to my country is more of a policy law than don't murder someone. So... Now, just to be clear here, we're not talking about anything in between. If someone is being murdered, that's absolutely a crime. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the simple act of trying to illegally immigrate into the United States.